been a while since we last reviewed an Android tablet, especially ones that cross the $500 threshold. There's a reason why the majority of Android tablets released in the last couple of years have been largely inexpensive ones. And when you consider dedicated tablets in general are a dying breed, it really makes you wonder about their advantages. Samsung just announced its latest Chromebooks, which now offer support for full-blown Android apps. Now that by itself should make anyone question Samsung's decision to launch its new Galaxy Tab S3. Considering that it took them a year and a half to release it after its predecessor, it makes us really question the value of an Android tablet. Now, all this kind of makes me wonder because when you have Windows 10 tablets out there, even those cheap Chromebooks, and even the iPad Pro, it really makes me wonder whether or not we need another high-end Android tablet. Before we get into every aspect about the Tab S3, let's just get its biggest flaw out of the way. Well, it's not really isolated to just the Tab S3, but rather to all Android tablets. Samsung is marketing the Tab S3 for serious professionals, evident by the inclusion of the S Pen and the optional Pogo keyboard. Our biggest issue is just the lack of tablet-optimized apps, which is an area where the iPad Pro really shines. We're not even talking about maximizing the layouts. It's more of a problem when you're using the tablet with the keyboard and when you run a certain app, say like Instagram, and it can't be used in landscape. So it automatically reverts to portrait even when you enable the orientation lock. Now speaking of the S Pen, we're happy to see that it's included with the purchase. This redesigned S Pen makes it feel like you're using a pencil or a pen, since it's bigger and with more substance. And sure, it's been improved with even more pressure sensitivity, making it perfect for graphics artists and such, but there's no palm rejection feature here, nor can you safely tuck the S Pen into the tablet when you're not using it, which means you'll need to keep an eye on it. As you can tell though, it draws its design inspiration from Samsung's own Galaxy smartphones. It's now covered in glass with an all-metal frame. Since it's glass though, there's a certain level of fragility with it, as well as being a magnet for smudges and fingerprints. When it's clean however, light bounces beautifully off its surfaces. It's premium in every way imaginable, but just be careful using it. You don't want it to accidentally slip. Specs-wise, the screen is the same as before. It's a 9.7-inch Super AMOLED display with a resolution of 2048 by 1536 pixels. It looks good, just as you'd expect, but many of the qualities have been improved. For starters, it's significantly brighter at over 460 nits, ensuring clarity isn't compromised when it's used outdoors under direct light. And even though it's extremely saturated in tone when it's in the adaptive mode, which is a common quality of AMOLED, when you switch to the basic display profile, it results in true-to-life, more accurate color reproduction. The biggest change to the display, however, is that it now features high dynamic range, that fancy HDR tech that adjusts details, the contrast, and color saturation to give videos that cinematic vividness. And it looks great, which makes it perfect for mainly media consumption. That's also aided by its quad speakers, which are tuned by AKG by Harman. Not gonna lie, now that it has those quad speakers, it gives it more of a stereo effect, but it still sounds kind of weaker than the speakers found in the iPad Pro. As for the rest of the tablet, there's a 13 megapixel rear camera that suffices with its quality. The Snapdragon 820 processor and 4GB of RAM handle most things, but it can still stumble when juggling more processor-intensive stuff. And while Samsung's interface running on top of Android 7.0 Nougat is cleaner looking, there's really nothing new we haven't seen before. The S Pen features in particular are still similar to what we've seen with the Note series, including the screen off memo feature that allows us to quickly jot down notes when the display is off. In the gaming department, it excels thanks to the Vulkan Graphics API engine, so gamers will especially like its performance. It's quite clear that the Tab S3 is largely competing against the iPad Pro. From a price standpoint, it undercuts its rival with its starting price of $600 with 32GB of internal storage, which of course can be supplemented with a microSD card. And that price includes the S Pen, whereas with the iPad Pro, it's an additional $100 cost. So when it comes to price, Samsung definitely has the advantage. But that's where it ends. By comparison, you can get nearly the same experience on other cheaper Android tablets. Compared to the iPad Pro, the Tab S3 simply lacks the necessary tablet-friendly apps that makes the iPad Pro more attractive. And then there are other things like Windows 10 tablets and Chromebooks. For a little bit more, you can get a full-blown Windows 10 tablet, which would offer more versatility in terms of productivity. So until we see Android get a proper treatment when it comes to focusing more on tablet optimized apps, it's going to be a tough hurdle for the Samsung Galaxy Tab S3. And there you go, guys. That is our review of the Samsung Galaxy Tab S3. Beautiful display, updated design. It's great that it has the S Pen, but the pricing and when you look at Android tablets in general, it's still a tough call. So if you guys want to learn more about the Samsung Galaxy Tab S3, you can check out our website, androidauthority.com. This is John V, signing off.